I'm joined now by Congressman Doug Collins. He is currently a chaplain for the Air Force Reserves, and he served a combat tour in Iraq in 2008. Congressman, good to see you. So when you were there, did you get a feeling then that the Iraqi citizens would be worried that upon the U.S. troop pullout, something like this would happen, that their country would be so volatile to militant extremists?
I think there was a concern about that. As you look back in that time when I was serving there, and I was in Balad, which my understanding is now being overrun as well in the Balad area, just down from Tikrit, is that the people were concerned that their infrastructure was not in place, the security was not in place, and they wanted their country back. They wanted to run themselves and be a country whole again, but yet at the same point they understood that without that they were scared that the leadership and future leadership would not hold the security of their country together, and now we see what is happening today.
Was there an expressed concern then, whether you were to have a Shia versus Sunni leader, that choice would kind of lay the groundwork for what would be to come in terms of its vulnerabilities to extremist groups? In this case, it's, you know, the Shia leadership that's getting a lot of blame for not doing enough for the Sunni majority.
Exactly. I think what you saw was just a desperate people wanting to have their country whole, stable, and back to where some semblance of normality, which is going to be very hard in that country anyway, given the years of the dictator Saddam and progressing through war. I think the problem that we've seen is there has been a lack of leadership. There has been a real parochialism, the Shia or the Sunni, and the leadership Maliki has done, frankly, a terrible job at managing this crisis internally as well as through the military. And now we see that what we have done in training and what we did leave behind is being squandered and wasted away, and the people now are back fleeing from their homes again.
It's not so simple. We hear from, you know, John McCain, who says now's the time for airstrikes, and he put it simply with Wolf Blitzer last night, saying, you know, how difficult is it to launch airstrikes into the desert? But it's far more complicated than that, isn't it? And if the U.S. Were to get involved militarily, whether it be ground troops or whether to launch airstrikes, isn't the U.S. being perceived as taking sides when you've got now a Shia-Sunni conflict?
Well, I think there could be a perception of that, although this group, ISIS, is very radical, and even some in their own community don't want to be associated with them. I respect
meaning the Sunni
community because of the extremism that is exhibited. I have great respect for Senator McCain, but I just believe that simply a casual airstrike or a series of airstrikes with nothing that's followed up from the ground from the Iraqi perspective is probably not the best alternative. I mean, we can't simply, we've gotten into some better world today where we believe if we just throw some cruise missiles at it, if we just have a strike, then that'll solve all the problems. This is inherently a little bit bigger than that. You could maybe do an airstrike that would stall the progression to Baghdad or maybe make them regroup. But ultimately, the Iraqi fighters, the security forces in Iraq have got to stand up. They've got to quit taking off their uniforms, and they've got to fight. It is their country. And we've got to see that happen, and Maliki has to lead in that regard.
And the president, you know, underscored that yesterday by saying it is this country that that enjoyed some training, pretty significant training and an investment from the U.S. to get its military, you know, up and running. And now that this has happened, it is up to the Iraqi leadership to take care of it. But is there confidence that the Iraqi leadership can take care of it on its own?
Well, there's always been a concern about the Iraqi leadership and what they were doing on the multiple fronts. But I do have to take at least an exception with the president in saying they did have training, but I believe that we did have an opportunity to form a status of forces agreement where we could have left at least a security force there of American troops.
You think it was a mistake for the U.S. to pull out completely?
I believe it was, and because that was what we were hearing even from the folks that I had dealt with, and I left about 2 years or so before.
But even when the Iraqi government says, we want you to leave.
Well, again, part of that was...
And that's what happened.
Well, it is. It's political calculus, though. I mean, he's looking at elections. Maliki is looking at trying to form his own leadership coalition. But at the same time, there had to be voices, and there could have been voices in the room saying, you're not ready yet. You're looking at some issues that you're getting better, but we're still not where we need to be. And now the equipment is there. I think, you know, even was acknowledged by the government. The equipment and the training they had, but when they're not fighting, that presents a whole different issue. So this is where we're in a position right now of not having folks on the ground, not having the control that we could have on input. So now we're having to do it from afar and trying to help get others to help us with that.
All right. Congressman Collins, thanks so much. Good to see you.
It's always good to see you as well. Thank you.
Appreciate it.